Hello and welcome to Hawk Talk, episode number 19. I'm happy to have you along again as we continue to meet not only the personalities at the Monmouth University Athletics Department currently, but as you'll see with my guest here this evening, some of the alums that have gone on to do just tremendous work since leaving Monmouth. And I am so pleased and happy to welcome in my guest here this evening, women's basketball alum and someone who does what we do and is doing her thing out in Las Vegas right now, and current sportscaster Kevaney Martin. And Kevaney, before we do anything else tonight, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, Eddie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on.
Well, like we were just talking before we came on the air, and you were catching us up to all the great work that you're doing. It's pretty wild that we're able to have this conversation now. Right when you left Monmouth is when the broadcasting boom exploded, but thankfully you were able to get into the field, and I know you're doing great things out in Las Vegas right now, but it is pretty great to be able to catch up with you. And I know we see each other on social media all the time, but how are things going out in Las Vegas right now? And more importantly, how are you and how are your family doing?
Everything's going great. Considering all the craziness and uncertainty that's going on in the world right now, I can't complain. I still have a job. A lot of people, especially actually in Las Vegas, it's a tough area. So a lot of people are unemployed in Las Vegas right now. So thankfully, you just got to be thankful for the little things, your health, your job. You can probably agree with that with all the uncertainty, it's kind of, you're kind of counting your blessings right now, more or less.
Yeah, and couldn't agree more 100%. It's obviously great to see you doing so well. And if you have a question for Kevaney Martin, again, women's basketball alum and currently working out in Las Vegas in the world of sports and covering the Vegas sports scene, please submit it into our Hawk Talk Facebook Live chat, and I'll make sure to relay those questions, whether they're sports related, whether they're Monmouth related. Kevaney finds herself in the middle of a pretty great situation and an emerging sports city in Vegas. And Kev, let's start there. Just how is it to be able to cover sports in Las Vegas? The Raiders are showing up. There's pro sports flocking to the town. Hard to believe it's already, as you just told me, your third year out in Las Vegas.
Yeah, to think, a little over 3 years ago, there wasn't a professional sports franchise here in Las Vegas. And now, you mentioned the Raiders, the Golden Knights, the Aces, which is our WNBA franchise, the Lights, which is our USL professional soccer team. It's just an extremely exciting time. I started in August of 2017, which was right before the inaugural season of the Golden Knights. So, everyone kind of, I feel like, knows how that played out with their run to the Stanley Cup final and everything. I really hit the ground running. My first day on the job actually was Mayweather-McGregor Grand Arrivals, and August 22nd of 2017, and I literally looked like a deer caught in the headlights. I was like, what is this? So it was kind of like the welcome to Las Vegas, So that was my very first assignment, and it's been crazy ever since.
When you covered that event, how long had you been physically in Las Vegas at the time?
3 days. So I actually drove cross country, and I got here 3 or 4 days before my first day. So it was late August, and I moved in. I still didn't even have a bed or a TV or anything, and I show up for my first day at work, and I'm all excited, and they're like, yeah, we're sending you down to Toshiba Plaza, which is the plaza right outside of T-Mobile Arena, the home of the Golden Knights. And they're like, that's the grand arrivals of Mayweather-McGregor. Have fun. And they took me live, and I was just, it was a blast. And I look back now, and it was, like I said, it's been nonstop and a lot of fun ever since.
You mentioned how lucky and thankful we are to have jobs, and you could tell by at least my setup, I'm working from home, but your setup a little different. You're in the studio right now in between shifts. So how busy are things for you right now during this time?
Yeah, it's nonstop in this market and in the sports world in general. Obviously, with live sports not going on, but with the Raiders moving here, there's still so much to cover. The Allegiant Stadium, the $2 billion, 65,000 seat stadium, which will be the home of the Raiders, is right down the street on the Strip. So we're constantly keeping our viewers updated on that. And, the Raiders are actually all kind of moving into the city now. We had Henry Ruggs on the show, their 12th overall pick over the weekend. So, yeah, it's honestly nonstop, even though there is no live sporting events right now. Yeah, it's a lot of fun in this market. And, it's never a dull moment, you could say.
And I think that speaks to the whole overall world of athletics and of sports. And if you have a question for Kevaney Martin here on our Hawk Talk, again, please submit it into our Facebook Live chat. They're starting to fill up in the queue right now. But, the journey, Kev, that you had since leaving Monmouth professionally, and we can even go before that. I know you're proudly from the suburbs of Pittsburgh. I know you are, you bleed black and gold, but your journey since leaving Monmouth has brought you to some pretty cool spots and has ultimately landed you in Vegas. But as you look back on that journey and covering sports all over the country, what are the things that you kind of have taken away that now make you the sportscaster that you are?
For the things that I've mainly taken away, and for anyone that's trying to get into this business, you just got to keep your head down and grind. And you know this, it's an ugly business. It's very competitive. You're going to get a lot more no's than yeses, especially early on. So you mentioned the places that I have been. I actually had to get my start in the business in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the ABC affiliate out there, KSFY TV. That's actually where I got my start. So what I've learned is you have to be willing to do anything, honestly, to go anywhere, it's not all being in front of the camera. There's a lot of work that goes on behind it. And, I've learned that throughout the years that you have to be multi-talented. And that's what I've taken with me. And I think, it's taken me this far, and I'm excited to see how far I can take it.
Yeah, I almost feel a little embarrassed because when Kevaney was at Monmouth, I was actually writing the press releases for the women's basketball team. So I've known Kevaney all the way back. And the broadcast setup, if you will, in those days at the university wasn't what it is now with these ESPN experiences. So Kevaney, when did you kind of know that you wanted to get into this field and that you wanted to make a career of it?
Yeah, first and foremost, looking at what's going on at Monmouth right now, I smile ear to ear just to see how far it's grown and what you guys are doing there. It's just like I love to brag about my school. And when I was at school there, I actually majored in journalism. My dream was to be a print journalist, and so I was the assistant sports editor of the student newspaper for 3 years, and I wanted to be a sports columnist. And then about halfway through my senior year, I got tired of answering the same question. Why are you getting into a dime business? Why are you getting into a dime business? And, I would fight it. And then someone, I'm not sure who it was, but they said, have you ever given broadcast, a try? And to be honest, up until then, I hadn't. And I think I guest anchored on Hawk TV maybe once or twice, and I fell in love. But unfortunately, when I graduated, I had no experience. I barely knew what a reel was. I didn't know, the ins and outs of the business. So, I did put together this tiny reel and sent it out. And it's funny to look back at it now because, at the time I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I sent that out to places. But yeah, that's how I landed in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
In the path that Kevaney has taken, you mentioned going from Pittsburgh, West Long Branch, and then obviously to Sioux Falls, but stops along the way in California and Virginia. And that actually will take us into our first question. And our first question tonight comes in. Megan is in Belmar this evening. And Megan wants to know, of all the places you lived, Kevaney, in your professional career, which one was your most favorite?
That's tough because honestly, from Sioux Falls, that's, where I really learned about the business, learned a lot about myself and my growth. And then you mentioned I moved on to California, the Bay Area. Still have a lot of ties there. Loved it there. Virginia was wonderful. That was Southwest Virginia. And now I'm in Vegas. To be honest, I don't have a favorite. I have loved every place for a different reason. I really enjoy living in Las Vegas. So if anyone's watching from Las Vegas, I'll say Las Vegas.
That's always the good, safe answer is to go with the current employer. Right, exactly. That's a smart answer. I could see that you are a veteran in the field now. Those stops that you've made along the way, you've been able to cover really everything: professional sports, Division I sports, high school. You still do a ton of stuff, obviously, with collegeinsider.com, mid-major TV, if anyone follows the great online work. From even just a couple of years ago when Monmouth was on their page seemingly every day. So what would you at this point consider, I guess, your specialty, if you want to say that. I know you also are into some color commentary, using your basketball expertise on broadcasts. What part of the job do you like to cover the most?
Ooh, that's tough. Right now, I love it all, to be honest. We spoke a little bit off camera. Being a color commentator for the UNLV women's basketball team gives me a chance just to sit down for 2 hours and talk hoops. And in those 2 hours, I kind of just zone out and I'm in, in this own little heaven. It's awesome. But then I also love this part of the job where I anchor. I'm in studio and I'm out in the field engaging with athletes and fans and so, it's kind of fun right now dabbling in, all these different aspects of the job and everything. So I couldn't pinpoint one particular, favorite, but it's right now it's just fun to grow and see how far and how far I can take it in all these different aspects.
If you have a question for Kevaney, please submit it into our Facebook live chat, and the questions are starting to pile up now. So we will get to our first question in this most recent batch, and it comes in. Jeff is watching Hawk Talk tonight, and Jeff is in Seabright, and he wants to know, and Kevaney, you alluded to it a little bit earlier, what advice you would have for college students who want to break into the business.
Yeah, I think you have to be willing to move anywhere and do anything. I mean, I know a lot of people that are anchors and reporters now that started off as production assistants. You have to start at the bottom. And even like I said, I started in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I remember when I got the job offer, I was still living in New Jersey. I just barely graduated, and I called up my parents and I was like, "Yeah, I'm packing up my bags and moving to Sioux Falls, South Dakota," which is in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know anyone. And yeah, it was tough. I remember like thinking to myself, what am I doing? Like, I don't know anyone. But yeah, that would be my advice is, just, and be able to take criticism also. Like I said early on it's in this business, and even now, you're going to get a lot more no's than yeses. And just keep your head down, keep grinding. And if you want it bad enough, it will work out and it will happen.
So to follow up on that, you left Monmouth, as you said, with a small reel, not a lot of experience. How did you, and I know that you mentioned it, you packed, you moved across the country, but when you got to Sioux Falls and as you went throughout all these stops, how did you go about getting all that experience, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera to kind of set you up on the path you're on now?
Yeah, I think early on, I think I would consider myself one of those annoying gnats. I would overstay my welcome in the sports department. I would ask 1,000 questions because I wanted to know. I didn't feel, like I said, I didn't have a real. I was very unprepared because I thought, more than half of my college career, I was going to get into print. So, I was always in the sports department, always asking the sports director questions. A lot of times I would tag along with him on his shoots and ask to shoot my own stand-up just to get practice in front of the camera and everything. So yeah, that's early on. I was probably that annoying person that wouldn't, can she get out of here, please? But I mean, if that's, I wanted to learn, I wanted to be a sponge, I wanted to soak it all up. And, my goal was to get in and out. Like I didn't want to make Sioux Falls a long-term stop. So I actually was only in Sioux Falls for 11 months. So I was there, I reported, I anchored, I built this reel, and that was my goal. And I moved on. And not that I didn't want to stay there, but I just knew that it was just a growing point in my, early on in my career.
As we shift gears with our next question, again, we're speaking with Kevaney Martin, women's basketball alum, class of 2010, and currently an award-winning sports anchor for the Las Vegas CBS affiliate KLAS. Our next question comes in. Allison is in North Carolina, and Allison, Kevaney, wants to know what it was like being in Vegas when everything shut down at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was shocking. From what I understand, like I said, I've only lived in Vegas for 3 years. So from what I understand, it only shut down one time prior. And I don't remember exactly why. So this was like groundbreaking. People who have lived here for 20, 30 years had never seen the strip shut down. And it was sad. I mean, you think about all the people whose livelihoods are on the strip and, they were unemployed, furloughed, laid off, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of people who were scared in the city of, when the next paycheck is coming or where it's coming from. So yeah, it was very different. It was sad. I actually I took advantage of it, and so our station is located right on the strip, and I would do between shows, I would take my nightly run on the strip, and normally you can't do that because it's so packed. So that was probably the silver lining for me, was that I actually got to see, the strip shot, that opportunity to soak in the strip in such a rare and unique time.
And it seemed, and we all saw the photos and videos coming out of places like New York, but mainly Las Vegas, where you see a picture and you're used to it being busy and up and down, and those pictures of almost looks like a movie set when there was no one on it. Did you get that eerie feeling running around it?
Yeah, I think I used the word apocalyptic. It literally, those movies that you see where there's like tumbleweeds blowing down a former busy street. That's honestly what it felt like and looked like. It was very eerie, and yeah, I'm glad to see that it's starting to slowly reopen and the life is being breathed back into the city.
Yeah, it had a little bit of that I Am Legend feel, right?
Yeah,
That
exactly.
yeah, the city with no one in it. The questions continue to come in for Kevaney. Our next question comes in from Greg. Greg is in Tom's River tonight. And Greg, we appreciate you watching Hawk Talk. And Kevaney, Greg's question is, so far in your career, who has been your favorite athlete interview?
Ooh, that's tough. I really enjoyed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for obvious reasons. He's so smart. I remember it was about a 5-minute sit down, and I never wanted it to end. I just wanted to keep, talking with him and picking his brain. Um, Definitely one of the more memorable ones, just because of the circumstances, will always be Kobe Bryant and Gigi. I interviewed them together at an Aces game last year, and just getting that experience with them, that was pretty special. LeBron, of course, was cool. The Lakers play here every summer, so interviewing LeBron and all those guys, and USA Basketball also works out here every summer, so you get all those stars in town. As a Steeler fan, Terry Bradshaw was great. I loved interviewing Terry Bradshaw. He's a handful. You definitely have to keep him reeled in on camera, that's for sure. Man, that's a good question. There's been a lot of Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe were cool. Just a lot of different, because this market brings in so many different athletes, just a lot of different opportunities. But that's a good question. But yeah, those are probably some of the more memorable ones for sure.
And then pretty soon we'll be able to add, all the Raiders, John Gruden. You got to let me know how John Gruden's going to be. He seems to be a little tough on the media sometimes.
Yeah, we've done some scrums with him. I haven't had a one-on-one with him yet, but yeah, he's a character, that's for sure.
Our next question for Kevaney comes in. Lynn is in Jackson tonight, a regular contributor on our Hawk Talk series. And Lynn's question is a good one for someone in this field. She's curious, Kevaney, about your schedule. What is a normal day for you? How do you balance working nights and weekends and all of the events that go with that while still keeping a little bit of time for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, we work nights. So typically, I get to work around 2 in the afternoon and work until midnight, 11 o'clock, with like an hour dinner break in there. So I kind of tell people I kind of work opposite. A lot of people work them, from 9 to 5, and then they do their grocery shopping or their errands after work, and then go home or go to the gym. So basically, I get up early, get my gym, get all my errands, maybe have a little downtime for myself, and then go to work. And as far as working weekends, it's funny, I haven't had a weekend off except, of course, for vacation days since I got into the business. So I don't even know, like, when I actually do have a weekend off, I'm just like, I don't know what to do with myself because I'm so used to working, and, huge sporting events are always on the weekends. So, yeah, my weekends are Wednesday, Thursday, which is weird, but I've gotten used to it. And especially in a market like this where it's always crazy and typically really crazy on the weekends, it's kind of nice to have the midday weekdays off. It's quieter, get more done. You can get your errands in and out. But yeah, that's my typical day, and yeah, I've kind of gotten used to it. I'm not a morning person, so it definitely fits with my schedule.
Not being a morning person and being in Las Vegas, I think it was meant to be.
Exactly. Exactly.
Our next question comes in, and it comes in from Liz in West Long Branch. And Kevaney, Liz wants to know, and now I'm going to have you step back a little bit and go back to your Monmouth time. When you think back to your time as a student athlete at Monmouth, is there any moment or any victory with the program or anything that really stands out the most to you?
Man, it's so funny when people hear me talk about Monmouth, they're like, they can tell that I genuinely had the 4 best years of my life there, and just have so much love and respect for Monmouth University. I mean, gosh, there's so many. Just daily interactions with people. I think the thing that I love the most about Monmouth is the people. Just beautiful, genuine people, and that's what made my 4 years there so special. The relationships that I built with my teammates, with my coaches, with my professors, other students. It was just incredible. I just have had so many memories, so many amazing memories there. It's a special, special place. And when I do get to go back, very rarely, I was actually back in New Jersey over last summer, and we got to stop by Monmouth. We were there for like an hour, and we drove around, and like it just filled my heart with like it. All the memories come rushing back, and I got goosebumps and like all this stuff, and to see the growth. I mean, there's been so much change, but also there's a lot of it's the same, and felt like I never left. It's a special place. I call it the best place on earth. So I love Monmouth.
And worth noting, we didn't prompt that answer at all. That was
No.
genuine right there from Kevaney. And it's funny how you're not that far removed from Monmouth, but you still talk about facility changes and how the campus has changed. And when you look at it now, it's a pretty remarkable thing. You played in Boylan Gym, right? Should be noted. And you got to see the very beginnings of the Ocean First Bank Center, but now the new Kessler Stadium that you got to see last year, and the soccer facility. And like you said, I was never a recruited Division I athlete. You were. I could see why athletes pick Monmouth.
Yeah, easily. I mean, it's bar none one of the most gorgeous campuses I've ever been on. And then, of course, the tagline, what is it, 1.5 miles from the beach? I mean, who can beat that? And then all the facilities, like you said, I got to see the beginnings of the beautiful state-of-the-art basketball. That was my senior year, so we played in that my senior year, and yeah, gorgeous, everything there. And yeah, I can definitely see why athletes flock to Monmouth for sure.
So college at the beach, first job in the mountains, right? You got the Bay Area, you got Vegas. You've seen, and your career's brought you to some pretty amazing places. What's next, I would say, for Kevaney? And we know that you love Las Vegas, but you love color commentary, you love the news and sports and covering things. You mentioned it though, you're a sponge and you keep acquiring things. So what are the things that, you're working on yourself?
Yeah. I'm always trying to grow. There's still, I mean, I've been in the business now for 9.5 years, and I'm still growing every single day in so many different aspects. Where I want to go? I mean, that's a great question. I used to, have like this pinpoint, goal, and now, like I said, I've been in the business for 9.5 years, and I still get excited going to work every single day. I know that sounds cheesy and cliche, but literally, like, I wake up and I'm excited to go to work, and I'm blessed, because I know sometimes work can be a drag for people. So that would be like my goal for just hopefully in wherever I end up, wherever I go, that in 10 years or 15 years, that if I'm still in this business, that I'm still loving it as much as I am now, and still excited to go to work every day. I don't know if that answered your question fully, but it's kind of changes when you get older, and you start seeing the bigger picture. You, instead of like having, oh, I need to be here and I need to be doing this, it's more of like inner growth, if that makes sense. Now I'm like, I want to be happy. I want to be enjoying what I'm doing, and wherever that may be, whatever market, team, or whatever, that's pretty much it.
If you have a question for Kevaney, again, please submit it into our Facebook Live chat, whether it's about her career, as she said, now going on almost 10 years, which makes me feel old, by the way, but going on about 10 years since leaving Monmouth and getting into sportscasting. And, Kevaney, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the current sports landscape. And as we mentioned, not a lot of live sports going on right now, but as you see things like the NBA hopefully starting back up in Orlando, and I know basketball is near and dear to you, and as you see, other things in training camp on the horizon, probably in about a month's time at the tail end of July, assess at this point where we are in the pandemic with the world of sports. I know things are slowly starting to come back, but really, what's the conversation with you and your coworkers as far as how things are now going to be covered?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. For the past since March, 90% of our interviews, 95 have been via Zoom. My first one-on-one in-person interview was this past weekend, and that was the first time I interviewed an athlete in person. So going forward, it's going to be interesting as far as when will there be locker room access again? That's where all of the post-game sound that we get is in locker room. So we've been chatting it up in our sports department. It's going to be a lot harder to do like individual stories. We're picturing that now they're going to be bringing athletes to the podium, and scrums for the most part are going to be out the window for the foreseeable future until there's a vaccine or they can figure this thing out. So yeah, I think it's going to change our jobs quite a bit for the foreseeable future. Obviously, there's still so many unknowns, as you mentioned, that teams are just starting to get back to their facilities, and with the restarts of the bubbles and all that stuff going on. So we're still in the dark about how the media is going to be treated in this whole thing, and how it's going to change our jobs. But it's going to be really interesting to see just what changes, and if we ever do go back to what we knew before, in this business.
And just to follow up with that, and I'm mainly curious because I know the conversations that we've had internally when really there was nothing going on. So over the last couple of months, what content can you create when there is no content? Like, I'm going to force you to look back now at the last couple of months, and what were you guys doing that maybe you didn't think you'd have to do covering sports?
Yeah, we've really, really had to get creative, that's for sure. Just a lot of Zoom interviews with Golden Knights and Raiders, and just getting their take on how they're staying in shape and how they're dealing with this mentally and physically. It's been a lot of those stories, and now that we're moving on from quarantining to trying to get back to playing, it's more of those questions and more of those stories as far as how are you feeling as far as, are you in shape, game shape, that type of thing. So yeah, we've had to get really, really creative with our stories, and try to put a different spin on the same story over and over again. So yeah, it's been interesting, that's for sure. I can't wait. I know that it's going to take some time, but I cannot wait till live sports are back, and we can kind of return to some normalcy.
So safe to say, as you continue to grow as a sportscaster and as a professional, if you could, from a content standpoint, get through these last couple of months, hopefully we can get through anything, right?
Right, exactly. It's like, oh my gosh, like I was worried for content before this. Like I'm just sitting here, like we had so much on our hands, and we were like, scrambling. There were some days that were quote unquote slower news days than others, and those slower news days back in the day would be like, huge jam-packed days now. So it's, yeah, if we can make it through these as far as trying to get creative with the same storyline over and over again, then everything else seems pretty easy.
Questions here still coming in for Kevaney Martin, and our next question takes us to Ken in Monroe, New Jersey. And Ken wants to know, and you alluded to it earlier, and you've kind of been asked similar questions during our interview, but not this specific one. What is the most memorable event you have covered?
Ooh. Super Bowl 51. The Patriots comeback was huge. That was insane to cover for sure. I would say that's up there. The Golden Knights run to the Stanley Cup final. That's up there, just given everything that happened that year here in Las Vegas, and it was their inaugural season. I'm trying to think. definitely covering Frank Beamer's last year at Virginia Tech, seeing a legend retire. We're not going to see that, if ever again, a coach that has been at the same program for that many years, and the way he built that up and built it into a national brand. That was incredible to kind of, and while I'm reporting on these, I also, I like to be a fly on the wall and make sure that I soak it in and, try to, so that I can look back on it. And, because you get caught up in getting that interview or, rushing onto the field, being the first to, all this stuff. And like, sometimes you just got to, take a step back and be like, wow, like this is what I'm seeing right now is pretty special. So while it's hard to do that in the moment, I try to do that. So those are three pretty high up there, I would say.
So it's hard to get kind of beyond those and better than those. I mean, you're talking Super Bowls and covering legendary college football coaches. But our next question comes in, and it's going to force you to think maybe about that. And Angela's in Philadelphia. We thank Angela for watching our Hawk Talk here this evening. And Angela wants to know, Kevaney, what is on your bucket list of events to cover?
So I'm a big-time golfer, and the Masters is definitely number one. If I could cover the Masters, I could die happy. But a World Series, of course, an NBA championship, of course. All the major sporting events, that would be it. But for me, my number one bucket list would definitely be the Masters.
Was golf always an interest of yours? We know hoops always was. When did golf come in the picture?
Yeah, when you become a washed-up athlete and you still want to compete, but your body won't let you, you got to find a sport that allows you. No, I always followed golf growing up. Dabbled in it. Would go to the driving range with my dad or my brother, but never was like that serious. But I got really into it, and just like it's my go-to now. I just love playing it, love watching it. We actually have the Shriners Open here, which gets pretty big. They usually get some big names, which is really cool. So yeah, definitely when I got more my washed up years, that's when I got interested in golf.
You're not allowed to. You're still too close. You don't feel it, but you're still too close to college to use washed up. Because if you're using that, then I got nothing. Then I can't use anything like that.
My body sure doesn't feel like that. I get out of bed and I have to do like 20 minutes of stretching just to like be able to move.
So we've mentioned how the journey has brought Kevaney from Pittsburgh all throughout the country to Las Vegas. And our next question, it comes in kind of on that line of thinking. And Kelly's in Spring Lake tonight. And Kelly wants to know the cities that you've been to. Which are the ones you haven't been to that you would most like to get to, whether it's to cover an event, to live? What's kind of on the bucket list as far as locations for you?
That's a great question. When I was first getting into the business, my dream was to get back to Pittsburgh and cover sports in Pittsburgh. Steelers, Pirates, Penguins, that was it. Which definitely is still like interesting to me. Obviously, my family's still there and I miss them just being out here and not getting to see them every day. So that would be, huge. But as far as covering sports, I've always, I have yet to like Vancouver or Calgary or cover a Canadian hockey night there in one of those cities. That would be awesome. Just trying to think. That's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. But yeah, probably, Pittsburgh would, be covering the Steelers at Heinz Field is top of the list for sure.
I'm sure you've seen many games there in the stands. It'd be much different to see them from that vantage point, though.
Yeah, for sure.
If you missed any of our conversation here with Kevaney tonight, you can always check this out, mammothhawks.com, in the video tab here on the Monmouth Athletics Facebook page, as well as on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/mammothhawks. And, Kevaney, on behalf of all of us, we really want to thank you for taking the time to join us here this evening. Give me one more question, though. What's on the docket for you tonight? You're about to anchor. What are you going to talk about?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys saw the Angel McCautry, who's a forward with the Aces WNBA team here in Las Vegas. She, started this initiative in the NBA. Russell Westbrook, everyone has really caught on as far as now athletes that are planning on competing in the bubble are given the opportunity to change the name on the back of their jersey to a victim of police brutality. So Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, even if it says Black Lives Matter. So it's been on SportsCenter, and she's been really the main figure. She was the one who pushed for this, came up with the idea. So yeah, we're gonna have her on tonight, so that will be fun. And we'll see what else. Raiders, Raiders, Raiders. That's pretty much everything. If they sneeze, we're on that.
Well, Kevaney, it was a pleasure to catch up, and we haven't spoken in quite a while, so we appreciate you being able to come and do this, and as always, all of the support from the distance you're at in Las Vegas. And if you want to check out any of Kevaney's work, KLAS is the CBS affiliate in Las Vegas. She's all over social media as well. Kevaney, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for doing this here this evening.
This has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for having me, Eddie.
That's Kevaney Martin, former Monmouth women's basketball player and currently covering the sports scene in Las Vegas. Again, if you missed any of our conversation, it's available in a variety of spots, MonmouthHawks.com, our YouTube page, our Facebook page in the video tab. On behalf of Kevaney, I'm Eddie Acapenti with the Monmouth Digital Network saying good night and thanks for watching.